February 14th, 1943. Off the coast of Guadalcanal. Dawn. The Pacific is slate gray and restless, rolling in long, muscular swells that slap against the hulls of escort carriers idling into the wind. Salt spray rides the air. The sky is low and bruised, clouds torn open by streaks of early sun. On the flight deck, steel plates are slick with moisture, and every step feels uncertain. Engines cough to life one by one, the sound sharp and metallic, then swelling into a deep, chest-rattling roar. Lieutenant James "Red" Holloway, 23 years old, Iowa farm boy, grips the ladder up to his cockpit. He pauses for half a second, eyes on the aircraft waiting for him. Vought F4U Corsair, bureau number stenciled in white. Wings folded like a predatory bird at rest. Its inverted gull wings curve down and then up again, elegant and wrong at the same time. The mechanics joke about it. The Navy whispers about it. The Marines swear by it. But on a carrier deck, this airplane has already earned a reputation. A dangerous one. Holloway climbs in, boots scraping metal, and settles into the seat. The cockpit smells of oil, hot rubber, and sweat. Gauges flicker as the ground crew pulls the chocks. He tightens his harness, checks the throttle, and rests a gloved hand on the stick. Ahead of him, the Corsair's long nose blocks the deck completely. He cannot see the landing signal officer from here. He will not see him on approach either. That is the curse of the Corsair. The Pratt & Whitney R2800, double wasp engine, 18 cylinders, over 2,000 horsepower, was built for speed and altitude, not precision landings on a rolling strip of steel. To harness that power, designers fitted a massive propeller. To clear it, they bent the wings. To house the engine, they stretched the nose. And in doing so, they created an aircraft that could outrun, outclimb, and outgun almost anything in the Pacific, but one that punished pilots who made even the smallest mistake on landing. Japanese pilots already know the stories. They have heard the Americans curse the Corsair as it bounces, skips, and slams onto carrier decks. They have seen wrecks pushed overboard, bent landing gear, smashed props, broken men. Over Rabaul and Bougainville, veterans of the Tainan Air Group laugh about it. They call it clumsy. They call it blind. They believe it will never truly threaten the Zero's dominance. They are wrong. But that truth is still forming, still bleeding into existence. Holloway signals ready. The deck officer points forward. Throttle up. The Corsair shudders, straining against the brakes, engine howling like an animal held back by a chain. Oil pressure steady, RPM rising. The world narrows to vibration and noise. The chain is cut. The aircraft lunges forward. Wind tears at the canopy. Deck crew blur past. The bow rushes up, drops away. And suddenly, there is nothing beneath him but gray water and rising air. Holloway eases the stick back. The Corsair climbs, fast and angry, wings slicing into the low cloud. Above the Solomons, the war is already waiting. Japanese reconnaissance reports American fighters operating from new fields, faster than wildcats, tougher than expected. Zero pilots, many with hundreds of hours of combat time, are confident. Their A6M2s can still turn inside anything. They still believe agility is king, but speed changes everything. At 15,000 feet, Holloway levels off. The engine settles into a deep, powerful rhythm. He runs his checks by habit: fuel mixture, magnetos, oil temp. Then he arms the guns. 6 50 caliber Browning machine guns, 3 in each wing, linked and waiting. Nearly 400 rounds per gun. A solid wall of fire that can tear aluminum, sever control cables, and shred engines in seconds. Below him, the islands stretch out, jungle thick and dark, rivers like scars cut into green flesh. Somewhere ahead, Japanese fighters are climbing too, light and nimble, their pilots scanning the sky with confidence born from years of success. Holloway thinks of home for a moment, of cornfields and flat horizons, of a mother who believes he flies something safe. He exhales, slow, steady, and rolls his shoulders, loosening tension. The radio crackles. Contact reported. Bogies inbound. This mission is supposed to be routine. Combat air patrol, cover for ships and transports. But in this sky, routine is a lie. Every flight is a test. Every landing a gamble. Every engagement a verdict on whether this bent-winged monster belongs here at all. As the Corsair noses forward and gains speed, the clouds thin. Sunlight flashes across the canopy, and for the first time, Holloway feels it. Not fear, not doubt, but something else. Confidence. The Corsair is no joke in the air. Up here, it is alive. Up here, it hunts. And soon, the pilots who mocked its landings will learn what its guns can do. The Corsair surges forward, climbing through broken cloud. The air grows thinner, colder. At 18,000 feet, Lieutenant Holloway eases the throttle back just enough to keep the engine from overboosting. The R-2800 responds with a steady, confident growl. No hesitation, no sputter. This is where the aircraft feels right. High. Fast. Dangerous. Below, the Solomon Islands fall away into a patchwork of jungle and reef. The ocean glitters in shards of silver light. Somewhere out there, Japanese fighters are coming up to meet him. They always do. The radio snaps alive again. Another voice, calm but tight. Bandits, 12 o'clock low. Multiple contacts. Zeros. Holloway leans forward, squinting past the long nose. At first, there's nothing. Then, movement. Tiny black specks rising from the haze, growing larger by the second. The Japanese formation is loose, confident, climbing in gentle spirals. They expect a turning fight. They always do. The Corsair does not turn. Holloway pushes the nose down and opens the throttle. The aircraft accelerates like a falling stone. Airspeed needle sweeps past 100 miles per hour, then 340. The wind noise rises into a scream. Control surfaces stiffen, but the Corsair remains solid, stable. Built for this kind of punishment. 1-0 flashes beneath him, close enough that Holloway can see the red Hinamaru on the wing, the pilot's helmeted head snapping back in surprise. The Japanese fighter tries to pull up, but it's already too late. Holloway squeezes the trigger. 6 Brownings erupt at once. The recoil hammers through the airframe. Tracers converge in a single brutal stream. The Zero disintegrates, engine cowling torn open, wing sheared nearly in half. Smoke, flame, debris scatter into the slipstream. The Japanese pilot never had time to react. No turning, no warning. Just speed and fire. Holloway pulls up hard, feeling the G-forces crush him into the seat. The Corsair climbs like a homesick angel, its massive engine dragging it back toward altitude with violent intent. He checks 6 instinctively. 2 Zeros streak past below him. their pilots finally aware that this is not a wildcat. This is not something they can dance with. The Japanese formation breaks apart. Radios crackle in their cockpits. Shouts, warnings, disbelief. They have trained for turning fights, for slow spirals and scissors. The Corsair refuses all of it. Another Zero tries to follow Holloway's climb. Its engine screams, but it can't keep up. The Corsair simply powers away, widening the vertical gap until the Japanese pilot is forced to level off, bleeding speed and energy. Holloway rolls inverted and dives again. This time, he comes in from the sun. The Zero below never sees him. Holloway lines up carefully, closing fast. He waits. Too close, some would say. Then he fires. The 50s chew through the Zero's fuselage, rip into the cockpit. The canopy shatters. The aircraft snaps into a violent roll and plunges toward the jungle. 2 kills in under a minute. Across the sky, similar scenes unfold. Other Corsairs dive, strike, and climb away, refusing to stay and tangle. The Japanese pilots try to adapt, pulling tighter turns, attempting to bait the Americans into slow-speed fights. But the Corsairs won't take it. They slash through the formation again and again. Fast passes, short bursts, devastating results. A Japanese flight leader, Petty Officer First Class Hiroshi Tanaka, veteran of China and the early Pacific, watches in disbelief. He has fought Americans before. Wildcats, P-40s. He has outturned them, outlasted them. This is different. These fighters do not linger. They hit like thunder and vanish into the sky. Tanaka pushes his Zero to follow one climbing Corsair. The airframe shudders. Control response softens. He is losing energy. His opponent is not. Tanaka breaks off, heart pounding, realizing too late that the rules have changed. The Corsair is not prey. It is a predator. Fuel gauges begin to dip. Ammunition counters tick down. Holloway checks his wingmen. One missing. Another, trailing smoke but still flying. The sky is suddenly empty of enemies. The Zeros have fled, diving away toward cloud cover and the safety of distance. Holloway exhales, realizing his jaw aches from being clenched so tight. On the way back to the carrier, the tension shifts. Combat is over. Now comes the part every Corsair pilot fears more than Japanese guns. The landing. The carrier deck is pitching in the swell. Holloway circles, heart rate rising again. He lowers the flaps. The aircraft bucks violently. The infamous Corsair stall threatening if speed drops too low. He fights the urge to look straight ahead. There's nothing to see anyway. "Keep it coming," the landing signal officer signals, his paddles flashing. Holloway drops the nose slightly, riding the edge. Too slow, and he'll stall. Too fast, and he'll bounce, skip, maybe flip. The deck rushes up. The Corsair slams down hard, bounces once, twice, then finally grabs the wire with a violent jolt. He sits there for a moment, breathing hard, sweat running down his back. In the ready room later, the mood is different. No jokes, no laughter, just quiet realization. The Corsair worked. In the air, it was unstoppable. And somewhere across the Solomons, Japanese pilots are no longer laughing. They are recalculating. Spring 1943, Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. The rain comes down in sheets, hammering the pierced steel planking of the airstrip until the ground trembles. Mud creeps up boots. Mosquitoes swarm in clouds so thick they feel alive. This is not a carrier deck. This is marine country. And for the Corsair, it becomes a proving ground. Lieutenant Holloway stands beneath the wing of his aircraft, watching mechanics work by lantern light. The Corsair looms over them, massive and scarred, its bent wings streaked with oil and grime. Bullet holes from the last engagement have been patched with quick rivets. The smell of fuel hangs heavy in the humid air. The Marines love this airplane, not because it is easy, but because it wins. Here on Guadalcanal, there is no pitching deck, no blind approach. The Corsair can take off heavy with fuel and ammunition, clawing its way into the sky with brutal acceleration. The pilots learn its habits the hard way. They memorize the stall characteristics, feel for the subtle buffet that warns of sudden wing drop. They practice curved approaches, never flying straight at the runway, always keeping the field in sight. The Corsair demands respect, and it rewards it with dominance. Japanese raids continue, probing American positions, testing defenses. Each time, Corsairs rise to meet them. The Zeros come in confident at first, then cautious, then increasingly desperate. The old assumptions crumble. Turning fights end in disaster. Head-on passes end worse. The 50s speak with terrifying authority. On May 8, 1943, Holloway leads a 4-ship flight north of the island chain. Radar reports inbound contacts. High altitude. Fast. These are not bombers. These are experienced pilots, sent to reclaim Hapulim air superiority. At 22,000 feet, the air is thin enough that breath feels sharp in the lungs. Frost creeps along the canopy edges. Holloway spots them first. 3 Zeros, climbing hard, noses up, trying to gain the advantage. He knows better than to let them. "Follow me," he orders, voice steady. The Corsairs dive together, engines howling. The sky becomes a vertical battlefield. Holloway lines up on the lead Zero, fires a short burst. The tracers rake the fuselage, but the aircraft keeps flying, trailing smoke. The Zero breaks hard left, trying to pull Holloway into a turn. Holloway refuses. He shoves the throttle forward and climbs instead. The Corsair surges upward, leaving the Zero hanging below, powerless. Another Japanese fighter tries to intercept from the side, but Holloway rolls and dives through the gap, slipping between them with speed they cannot match. This is the new doctrine. Boom and zoom. Hit fast. Hit hard. Never stay. One of Holloway's wingmen, Second Lieutenant Mark Alvarez, 21, Los Angeles, fires a devastating burst into a Zero, attempting a climbing turn. The enemy aircraft erupts in flame, spinning down in a widening corkscrew until it disappears into cloud. The surviving Japanese pilot breaks away, diving toward the sea. No one follows. There is no need. Back at Henderson Field, the men gather around a map tacked to a plywood wall. Kill markings are chalked in white. The pattern is unmistakable. The Corsair is changing the balance. Word spreads quickly through the Japanese ranks. Reports describe an American fighter that cannot be caught, cannot be outrun, and shrugs off punishment that would cripple lighter aircraft. Some pilots still scoff, blaming poor tactics, bad luck. Others listen carefully, adjusting their behavior, avoiding altitude, avoiding contact. But the Pacific offers few places to hide. By late 1943, the Corsair is no longer a question mark. It is a known threat. Japanese pilots learn to recognize its silhouette instantly. The long nose, the bent wings, the brutal speed in a dive. They know that if it is above them, they are already in danger. And yet, for all its victories, the Corsair still claims its own. Holloway watches another pilot misjudge a landing, stall just short of the strip, and cartwheel into the trees. The aircraft burns. The pilot does not escape. The men stand in silence, helmets tucked under arms, rain washing the smoke into the ground. The Corsair is still unforgiving. But now, it is understood. As the months pass, improvements arrive. Raised pilot seats, modified canopies, training refined through blood and experience. Carrier pilots practice endlessly, learning to approach in a curved path, never straight on. Slowly, the landing accidents decline. The Navy takes notice. By 1944, Corsairs are back on carriers in force. Not as experiments, not as risks, as front-line fighters. And soon, the fight will move north, beyond the Solomons, beyond the jungles and reefs, into skies where the Corsair will face everything Japan has left to throw at it, including pilots who no longer laugh. June 19th, 1944, Philippine Sea. Late morning. The ocean below is calm, almost deceptively so. Endless blue, broken only by the white wakes of American carrier task forces slicing through the water. High above, at 24,000 feet, the sky is a cold, pale dome. Vapor trails begin to form at wingtips. The war has climbed into thinner air. Lieutenant James Holloway is older now, not by much, still only 24. But the lines around his eyes are sharper, his movements quieter, more economical. His Corsair bears fresh markings. New squadron, new carrier, same airplane, same beast. Ahead of him, radar vectors flash through the headset. Large contacts inbound. This is not a skirmish. This is a wave. Japanese naval aviation is making its stand. Dozens of enemy aircraft rise from carriers far beyond the horizon. Zeros, dive bombers, torpedo planes, piloted by men with far fewer hours than those Holloway faced over Guadalcanal. The veterans are mostly gone. What remains is courage, desperation, and doctrine that no longer fits the war being fought. Bandits bearing 310, Angels 20, multiple groups. The Corsairs form up, wings rocking in acknowledgement. Around them fly Hellcats, heavy and reliable, but the Corsairs sit higher, faster, waiting to be unleashed. The bent wing fighters look almost predatory now, noses angled slightly downward, engines humming with restrained violence. When the Japanese formation finally becomes visible, it is immense. Dozens of specks stretching across the sky. Holloway feels a familiar tightening in his chest. The scale is different, but the rules are the same. Altitude is life. He pushes the throttle forward. The Corsair surges ahead of the formation, climbing slightly before rolling over into a dive. The airspeed climbs rapidly. 360, 380, 400 miles per hour. The aircraft remains stable, solid, built to absorb punishment at speed. Below him, a group of Japanese fighters attempt to climb and meet the attack. They are too slow, too late. Holloway selects his target, 1-0 braking formation, trying to turn inside the incoming American fighters. He fires a long burst. The 50s hammer the wings, shred the fuselage. The Zero erupts into flame and falls away, a burning comet against the blue. All around, the sky explodes into violence. Hellcats tangle with Zeros in tight, brutal engagements. Corsairs slash through bomber formations, tearing engines apart, ripping wings off in seconds. Tracers crisscross the sky. Parachutes blossom. Wreckage falls in spirals and plummets straight down. A Japanese torpedo bomber pushes through, low and fast, its pilot ignoring the chaos. Holloway dives after it, closing rapidly. The gun sight steadies. He fires. The bomber's right engine detonates. The beast aircraft rolls, clips a wingtip, and disintegrates before it can release its payload. The Corsair climbs again, engine roaring, oil temperature creeping higher. Holloway glances at his gauges, everything holding. He rolls back into the fight without hesitation. For the Japanese pilots, this is slaughter. They try to turn. They try to climb. They try to run. None of it works. The Corsair is faster in a dive, stronger in the vertical, and armed with guns that do not forgive. A single burst is often enough. In one engagement, Holloway watches a young Japanese pilot attempt a classic defensive spiral. The Corsair stays above him, matching the turn from the vertical, then drops in behind him like a falling hammer. The 50s flash. The Zero snaps apart mid-air. Minutes feel like seconds. Seconds stretch into hours. By the time the Japanese formations break and scatter, the ocean below is dotted with wreckage and oil slicks. American carriers remain untouched. The threat is gone. Later, historians will call it the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. For the men who fought it, there is no humor in the name. Back aboard the carrier, Holloway lands cleanly. Smooth approach, perfect wire. He shuts down the engine and sits quietly, hands still on the controls, listening to the ticking metal as it cools. Around him, deck crew cheer, slap each other on the back. Pilots climb out, faces drawn, eyes distant. In the ready room, intelligence officers tally numbers. The ratio is staggering. Japanese losses in the hundreds. American losses minimal. The Corsair's name comes up again and again. Not mocked now. Not doubted. Feared. Word spreads rapidly through what remains of Japanese air units. The bent wing fighter is no longer discussed as a flawed American experiment. It is described as a killer, a machine that punishes mistakes instantly. Pilots are warned, never fight it on its terms, never let it get above you, never assume it cannot land on carriers anymore, because it can. And it does. But the war is not over. Far from it. Ahead lie island chains soaked in blood, kamikaze attacks, and skies crowded with men who know they are flying into death. April 7th, 1945. Okinawa. Early afternoon. The sky over Okinawa is thick with smoke. Columns rise from burning ships offshore and shattered buildings inland, smearing the horizon into a gray-brown scar. The air smells of cordite and fuel, even at altitude. This is no longer a clean air battle between fighters. This is survival. Lieutenant Commander James Holloway, promoted, hardened, guides his Corsair at 10,000 feet, scanning below. The radio is alive with overlapping calls. Kamikaze raids inbound. Dozens of them, maybe more. The Japanese have changed tactics. They no longer care about winning the air. They care about hitting the ships. Holloway spots the first group, single-engine fighters, some barely patched together, diving in shallow arcs toward the fleet. Their pilots are young. Too young. Some fly straight, others weave erratically. Already damaged, already burning. There is no time for mercy. Engage at will. The Corsair dives. The engine howls. The airspeed builds brutally fast. Holloway picks the nearest attacker, a Zero loaded with explosives, its wings scarred. control surfaces fluttering. He fires at close range. The aircraft detonates mid-air, the blast rocking the Corsair violently. Debris flashes past the canopy. He pulls up, rolls, dives again. Another Kamikaze slips through, skimming the waves. Holloway lines up from behind, firing in short, precise bursts. The 50s chew through the fuselage, shred the engine. The aircraft slams into the sea, erupting in steam and fire less than a mile from a destroyer. The sky is chaos. Flak bursts everywhere. Black puffs, white streaks, shards of steel ripping through airspace without warning. Friendly fire is as dangerous as enemy action now. Holloway threads through it all, focused, methodical, ruthless. A Japanese pilot turns toward him head-on, eyes fixed forward, aircraft already burning. Holloway holds his fire until the last second. Then he squeezes the trigger. The enemy aircraft vanishes in a white flash. The Corsair shudders. Warning lights blink. A fragment of debris has punched through the cowling. Oil pressure drops slightly, but not enough. Not yet. Holloway stays in the fight. Around him, Corsairs and Hellcats form a moving barrier between the attackers and the fleet. They intercept, dive, fire, climb, repeat. Each engagement is a race against time. Miss one, and a ship dies. Below, a carrier takes a hit. Flame erupts. Men scatter across the deck. Holloway watches it for half a second, long enough to feel the weight of it, then forces his eyes back to the sky. Another attacker is coming in low. He dives again. The Corsair's guns roar. Tracers converge. The Kamikaze disintegrates less than 1,000 yards from its target. The shockwave rattles Holloway's teeth. Finally, fuel runs low. Ammunition nearly gone. Holloway climbs away. Engine rough now. Oil streaking across the windscreen. He sets course back to the carrier, hand steady despite exhaustion that feels bone deep. The landing is rough. The deck is crowded, damaged, slick with firefighting foam and blood. Holloway brings the Corsair in carefully, riding the edge once more. The hook catches. The aircraft jerks to a stop. He cuts the engine and just sits there. Around him, sailors work frantically, repairing, treating wounded, clearing wreckage. The battle is not over yet, but this wave is done. Later, after debriefing, Holloway stands on the deck and looks at his aircraft. The Corsair is battered, patched, stained, scarred, but it stands ready. From Guadalcanal to the Philippine Sea, from mockery to mastery, from dangerous experiment to dominant predator. Japanese pilots once laughed at its landings. Now they fear its shadow. Because in the Pacific sky, speed ruled, firepower decided, and the Corsair delivered both, without mercy. If you like the video, please subscribe.